Have you ever wondered how much time Nicole Watterson would spend in prison if her actions were judged in the real world? Nicole, the fierce and competitive mother who keeps the Watterson family going, but who sometimes lets her intense emotions take over. Always ready to fight for her kids, or whatever it takes. Nicole doesn't hesitate, nor does she consider the consequences, to get things done her way. But would all this dedication turn her into a criminal in the real world? Get ready to find out.
That's it? I think you've all done it. You finally pushed me over.
Over what? The limit.
In the episode The Spoon, Nicole Watterson gets involved in a situation as absurd as it is hilarious. It all starts when she and her family are taken hostage during a robbery at a convenience store.
Seki! He's got a spoon!
The thief, with no real threat, decides to use a spoon as a weapon, which is enough to scare Darwin and Gumball, who faint from sheer terror. While the thief takes the cash from the register, Nicole, in true Mama Lion style, surprises everyone and resolves the situation in the most unexpected way possible by hitting the thief with a sausage. Yes, a sausage becomes her improvised weapon to take down the criminal.
Yes, Seki!
Stop calling my kids suckers, please.
The real problem arises when the police arrive at the crime scene and see Nicole holding the money with the thief lying on the ground. Without a second thought, the police assume Nicole is the perpetrator of the robbery. She is immediately handcuffed and taken away, while her family and the other hostages are left perplexed by what just happened. Now, if this happened in the real world, things would be very different, and Nicole would face serious legal issues. In the United States, any object used to intimidate or harm someone can be considered a weapon, which means that the sausage Nicole used could lead to a charge of armed robbery, resulting in up to 20 years in prison and a fine of $250,000. Additionally, by taking the thief's money, even with good intentions, she technically committed theft, which could add 5 more years to her sentence and a fine of $10,000. The use of the sausage to hit the thief would also be considered assault, resulting in up to a year in prison and a fine of $1,000. To make matters worse, being found with the money in hand and failing to clarify the situation immediately, Nicole could also be charged with obstruction of justice, which would add 5 more years of prison time and a fine of $20,000. In the famous episode The Limit from the second season, Nicole Watterson reaches epic levels of frustration and anger. It all starts with a simple request. No one in the family should bring candy home. However, Richard, Gumball, Darwin, and Aeneas, of course, completely ignore the rule. The situation quickly escalates, with Nicole getting involved in several outbursts of rage within the store, including a moment where she vents her anger on a poor employee who clearly has nothing to do with her family problems.
Excuse me, madam, but maybe you'd like
Maybe
to try—
what? Maybe you know better about disciplining my family than I do? Maybe I shouldn't be screaming like a lunatic in the mall?
No. I just thought maybe you'd be interested in—
What?
But it doesn't stop there. The insistence of her family in defying her orders pushes her to the limit, turning her into something that even Elmore is not prepared to handle. Nicole literally transforms into an anger monster, desperately chasing her kids and husband through the aisles of the store.
Don't make me do this!
The horror show is so intense that not only does her family flee in terror, but all the customers and employees at the location also panic, fearing they would be the next victims of Nicole's wrath.
Get out of the way! She's out of control!
If this scene were to happen in the real world, Nicole's actions would be considered threats and intimidation under U.S. law. Her uncontrolled rage and aggressive behavior could be classified as an act that put others in imminent fear of physical harm, even if no actual physical attack took place. However, the consequences would be serious. In the United States, the law treats actions that cause fear or threats with rigor, depending on the severity. In this case, Nicole could be charged with disorderly conduct for causing a disturbance in the store. This could result in up to 90 days in jail and a fine of around $500. She could also face a criminal threat charge for intimidating customers and employees with her aggressive behavior, which could lead to up to 1 year in prison and a fine of about $1,000. Additionally, she could be charged for emotional distress if any customers or employees decided to sue her for trauma or stress caused by the incident, resulting in additional fines varying by state and the reported impact. In this next episode, with just 30 seconds into it, Nicole Watterson is completely out of control. It all starts with her driving recklessly, speeding like she's in a Formula One race. But chaos truly ensues when Nicole encounters a traffic jam. Instead of accepting the situation like a normal person, she decides that traffic laws do not apply to her. First, she breaks the doors of her own car to get the kids out.
Come on, we're gonna be late!
Then, she solves the traffic problem by jumping over the cars in front of her, damaging all of them in the process.
Hey, are you crazy, you dumb?
As if that wasn't enough, Nicole almost hits a man who is inside his own vehicle. When he tries to complain about her behavior, Nicole intimidates him with her overwhelming fury, causing him to retreat in pure fear. And the reason for all this chaos? Simply because Nicole was late to take the kids to school.
What? We travel faster than the speed of sound. Give it a second.
Have a nice day.
There you go.
Now, if this madness happened in the real world, the consequences would be devastating for Nicole. Her acts of destruction and intimidation would be severely punished by U.S. laws, leading to a significant list of charges. First, the damage caused to the cars would be classified as destruction of public and private property. This crime, depending on the state, can result in penalties ranging from 1 to 5 years in prison and fines depending on the amount of damage caused. In Nicole's case, considering that she damaged several cars, the financial loss would be enormous. In addition, by almost hitting a man and intimidating him with her fury, Nicole could be charged with reckless driving and criminal intimidation. Reckless driving could lead to up to 1 year in prison and a fine of about $5,000, while criminal intimidation could add another year of prison time and a fine of $1,000. In Elmore's world, all of this is just another day in Nicole Watterson's life. But in the real world, her rage would make headlines, result in numerous lawsuits, and guarantee her a spot in an anger management course. And for sure, the kids would have to find another way to get to school while Nicole dealt with the courts. In this next family dinner episode, things take an unexpected and explosive turn. It all begins when Nicole notices that Gumball has his eye covered. When she insists that he show what he's hiding, she discovers a black eye. Gumball tries to downplay it, saying it was an accident, but Anais, with no filter, reveals the truth. He's been bullied at school.
What happened to you?
I ran into a door?
That's not true. He's being bullied.
Nicole's maternal instincts kick in immediately, and without thinking twice, she stands up furiously from the table. Determined to defend her son, she heads straight to Mr. Rex's house, the father of the bully responsible for Gumball's black eye, to settle the matter in a civilized manner. However, her attempt at a calm conversation quickly spirals out of control when Rex refuses to listen and, likely, says something that triggers Nicole's breaking point. Without hesitation, she resorts to physical violence, hitting Rex and completely destroying his house in the process.
Well, I'm glad we finally reached an agreement. Goodbye, Mr. Rex.
If this scene happened in the real world, Nicole would face serious legal consequences. While her instinct to protect her child is understandable, her actions would be considered serious crimes under U.S. law. First, the assault on Rex would be classified as physical assault, which could lead to a penalty of up to 5 years in prison and a fine of approximately $10,000, depending on the severity of the injuries inflicted. Furthermore, destroying Rex's house would constitute property damage, a crime that, depending on the value of the damage, could result in up to 5 years in prison and fines that could reach hundreds of thousands of dollars to cover the cost of rebuilding. In the following episode, Nicole Watterson takes us on another one of her intense and unexpected adventures. It all begins when she receives a mysterious letter from her former high school rival. Without giving much detail, Nicole tells the kids she needs to take care of some things, leaving everyone intrigued. What no one expects is that these things would lead to an epic and destructive battle.
Yuki threatened to get Mom fired and lose the house unless she fights. We've got to stop them.
As soon as Nicole arrives at the school after hours, she is greeted by her rival, who is clearly ready to settle old scores. Without exchanging a word, the two women immediately engage in a fierce battle, full of powerful strikes and moves worthy of an action movie. The intensity of the fight is so absurd that it causes considerable damage to the school. And as if that wasn't enough, some nearby children witness the entire violent scene.
What took you guys so long?
Takes ages to get anywhere on these legs.
Are you also here to stop the fight? Yeah, but then I realized I'd probably get annihilated trying. So...
Nicole's rival, showing impressive powers, seems strong enough to destroy not only Nicole, but everyone around them. However, in a surprising twist, Nicole reveals that her strength is even greater. With devastating finishing blows, she emerges as the absolute victor, leaving her opponent defeated and likely questioning her life choices. If this scene took place in the real world, Nicole would face a long list of legal charges. First, the fight at the school, which occurred after hours, could be considered trespassing. Depending on the state, this could lead to up to 3 years in prison and a fine of about $5,000. Furthermore, the destruction caused during the fight would constitute property damage, a serious crime that could result in up to 5 years in prison and hefty fines to cover repair costs, depending on the extent of the damages. The fact that children witnessed the fight could lead to an additional charge of exposing minors to violence, which could result in another year in prison and additional fines. Lastly, the physical assault on her rival would likely be classified as aggravated assault, given the powerful attacks and the clear risk to others at the scene. This could lead to up to 10 years in prison and a fine of around $20,000. In the episode The End, Nicole Watterson finds herself in yet another situation that reflects her explosive temper. It all begins when she and Aeneas go to Chunky Bite, where Larry works. Nicole, always determined, asks Larry to let them in. However, Larry emphatically refuses, explaining that every time he interacts with the Watterson family, something terrible happens to him.
Come on, Larry, just let me in. I'm sure we can talk this through.
No, every time I so much as look at a Watterson, something terrible happens to me.
Nicole's patience quickly runs out when she realizes Larry is unwilling to even talk to her. Upset, she decides to handle the situation in her own way. She forcibly enters the establishment. She opens the door herself, ignoring any attempts at dialogue or rules.
No, I mean you can't do that because he's got a restraining order on us.
At this moment, Aeneas, always the voice of reason, reminds her mother of a crucial detail. Larry has a restraining order against her, which makes the invasion a serious violation of the court order. If this scene occurred in the real world, Nicole would face serious legal consequences. Simply entering a private establishment without permission would constitute trespassing, a crime that could result in up to 3 years of imprisonment and a fine of about $5,000, depending on the state. However, the fact that Larry has a restraining order against Nicole makes the situation even more serious, as she would be violating a court order. Violating a restraining order is taken very seriously in the United States and could lead to up to 1 year in prison for contempt of court, a fine of around $1,000, in addition to any potential costs related to emotional or material damages that Larry could claim. Furthermore, if Larry decided to sue Nicole for harassment or emotional distress, she could face additional civil costs, including fines and compensation for damages, which would vary depending on the court's assessment. In this episode, a simple dispute over a remote control turns the Watterson household into a full-fledged battleground. It all starts when Richard, tired of the fighting, decides to hide the remote from the entire family. But Nicole, as determined as ever, takes charge and asks Aeneas for help to retrieve the most contested item in the house.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm going grocery shopping.
When Nicole finally gets the remote, the situation escalates even further. The whole family turns against her, starting a frantic battle that intensifies in both absurdity and violence. With tensions running high, Nicole, without hesitation, resorts to physical aggression, using all her strength to push each family member away. The fight, marked by shouting, confusion, and destruction, makes it clear that the dispute over the remote is much more than a trivial issue. It's a matter of power. If this scene occurred in the real world, Nicole would face 2 main charges. First, assault, as she physically attacks her family members during the fight. Even though this is a domestic altercation, laws in the United States treat domestic violence with strictness, and Nicole could be charged with domestic violence. Depending on the severity of the injuries caused, this could result in up to 5 years in prison and a fine of $10,000. Additionally, the chaos caused by the fight would likely result in property damage, especially considering that the Wattersons aren't exactly careful. This would include repair costs for furniture, electronics, or anything else damaged during the commotion. Nicole could also face up to 3 years in prison, depending on the value of the damages, and be required to pay a fine for the damages, which could easily exceed $5,000, considering the extent of the destruction. In the following episode, Nicole Watterson, already exhausted and frustrated with Gumball's chaotic behavior, leaves the house to handle some daily errands. What she doesn't expect is that her own son has caused an even bigger problem. Gumball, in another of his brilliant ideas, makes a false report to the police, claiming Nicole's car has been stolen.
Hey, lady! Pull over and step on the stolen vehicle!
The confusion begins when the police, following the report, locate the car and attempt to stop Nicole, ordering her to pull over. However, too tired to deal with another complication, Nicole decides to ignore the officer's requests and continues driving. What was supposed to be a simple stop quickly turns into a police chase. Using her driving skills and quick thinking, Nicole manages to evade the officers, but the situation escalates even more when she drives her car into the town hall, causing a stir even at low speed. If this scene occurred in the real world, Nicole would face a series of serious charges. First, fleeing and disobeying the police. By ignoring the officers' orders to stop the car, Nicole would be committing the crime of resisting arrest. This could result in up to 1 year in prison, along with a fine of $5,000. In the following scene, Nicole Watterson shares a memorable childhood moment when she had to make a life-changing decision. She recalls a time when she gave Harold, a promising young man, a chance, only to realize he wasn't the right partner. Harold constantly belittled Nicole, criticizing her abilities and undermining her self-esteem with passive-aggressive comments.
You look better with the veil on.
As Nicole relives this memory, she imagines what her life would have been like if she had married Harold. In her mind, she visualizes an unhappy marriage. One particular scene illustrates this perfectly. During a romantic dinner, Nicole spends hours preparing a perfect sushi dish, putting all her effort and love into the meal. When she finally presents it to Harold and asks if he liked it, he responds with criticism, saying the dish is too cold, completely disregarding Nicole's effort and dedication. This criticism is the tipping point that sparks Nicole's frustration. Furious beyond reason, she decides to reheat the sushi, but her attempt goes far beyond what was intended, resulting in a fire that consumes the entire house. The situation quickly spirals out of control, and the imaginary dinner ends with the house completely destroyed by flames. In the aftermath, Nicole finds herself arrested, an extreme reflection of the consequences of her poor choices. If this imagined sequence were to happen in the real world, the consequences would be severe. Nicole could face serious charges, including arson, which involves starting a fire in a house, even accidentally, considered a crime in cases of negligence or intent. Penalties could include up to 20 years in prison, depending on the severity, and fines that could exceed $100,000, considering the value of the property destroyed. She would also face destruction of property charges, including responsibility for the material damages caused by the complete destruction of the house, which could result in up to 5 years in prison and fines to cover reconstruction costs, easily exceeding hundreds of thousands of dollars. Furthermore, if Harold or others were present during the fire, Nicole could be charged with endangering lives, facing up to 10 years in prison and fines around $20,000. Adding up all the charges, Nicole could face up to 35 years in prison and fines that could surpass $500,000, considering the total cost of damages and possible civil suits filed by the victims. And with that, we conclude the analysis of Nicole Watterson's chaotic and explosive history. From her wild car chases through the streets of Elmore to setting houses on fire and fighting in stores, Nicole certainly doesn't hold back when it comes to delivering justice her way, even if it means breaking a few or many laws. After adding up all the crimes, from assaults to property destruction, Nicole would be facing an impressive accumulated sentence of 120 years and 3 months behind bars, in addition to $928,500 in fines that would make any economist sweat cold. In the world of Elmore, she's a dedicated and hilarious mom, but in the real world, Nicole would be known as the Watterson Storm. So, the next time you watch the adventures of this family, remember, Nicole might be an amazing mom, but in court, even she would need a lot of help to get out of this one.